Hello, welcome back to Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm James Pendleton and I'm here to talk about Everton in the news at the minute. This is the 24/7 news report, first one we've done since obviously the January window. These will be coming more regularly across obviously our socials for the next sort of couple of months while obviously we're in silly season. The transfer window, I mean, don't you just love it? It's barely been open. Obviously Everton have already been linked to a hatful of players, but to be fair, I'd say mostly of a relatively similar ilk, as we'll obviously get into here. But again, obviously we'll see obviously what happens with these. You do feel there's going to be a couple of sagas which may run on for the foreseeable, and a few which might get shown up a bit quicker than that, so we'll see. But the first item on the agenda is Everton have been linked to a move for Jean-Philippe Mateta. We were linked in January as well, seemingly one of those players we were just kind of going around seeing who was available. Lucas Shaw was another one at Reading, if anyone remembers that. But yeah, I think it's fair to say, well actually to be fair, I say it's fair to say I saw over on our Twitter that I think just over a fifth of people said they'd take Jean-Philippe Mateta. I can't get my head around that. Whenever I watch him, he looks absolutely useless. 2 goals last season. Last player we signed, called Jean-Philippe, who played for Mainz, it didn't go quite so well, so maybe we should definitely steer clear. But no, seriously, he is really poor. Sorry to do a bit of a Frank Lampard there, but he is pretty crap. So hopefully that's just paper talk and that's someone we stay away from. More interestingly, more excitingly, however, we have been linked to Jack Clarke. Obviously the former Leeds, Tottenham, and he played for Middlesbrough. No, sorry, he had an issue at Middlesbrough where I think he fainted on the bench or something similar, but that's why I'm getting confused. But yeah, he played for Tottenham, played for Leeds, of course, came through Leeds Academy, looked really good, went to Spurs, went back on loan to Leeds, career stalled massively. He's now at Sunderland, where he just come off the back of a really good season, got his FB ref up here. He is 22 years of age. He's the kind of player who, I think if you're like me, you keep up to date with the Championship. If maybe you don't watch the highlights every week, or you kind of know who's up and who's down. Jack Clarke and Amad Diallo have been really good for Sunderland this season or last season now, obviously. And in terms of, they just always pop up and do something. 9 goals, 11 assists last season. Super impressive. And yeah, I'm a big fan of his. I like the moves at Leeds. The kind of signing Everton just very rarely make in terms of young players who are relatively cheap from the Championship, send them back out on loan, and obviously went back to Spurs. And I think by the time he went back to Spurs, Mourinho was there. So what did it happen just before Mourinho? I can't quite remember, but the point being is he ended up there, and I don't think he ever played for Spurs. I'm not sure if he actually made a senior appearance, but so I'm looking at his FB ref here in terms of his sort of numbers. He's not the most creative player in the world in terms of like what Iwobi is in terms of passing and progressive passing and all that. Progressive carries, he's in the 86th percentile. Successful take-ons, touch as well in the 75th. So likes getting on the ball, likes getting past people, getting the ball into the box, cutting it back, that sort of thing. So he scored 9 goals as well, which is really good for a wide player. Would have been our top scorer last season if obviously things work like that. But this is a move I would definitely look into. I don't know how much they want, but seemingly Sunderland are happy to move him on. So I would be all over that if I was Everton for the right price. Young, homegrown, obviously EFL experience, and yeah, pretty high ceiling, which is what we're going to be looking for, of course. Next up, obviously Conor COADY. We had this yesterday that he's not going to be kept on at Everton. Basically, it's one of them where for me, I'm in 2 minds about it. He's 30 years old. He can only really play in a 5. He's not quick, so you think that will get even worse as he gets a bit older anyway. In terms of his form under Dyche was a bit patchy, I felt at the start. He did okay obviously to begin with, but then he obviously made a couple of mistakes. Pretty poor against Villa in a game, I seem to remember, and he just fell out of favour a little bit. And I think if Dyche going to like a kind of player, it's going to be a colossal man-mountain aerial machine. That's not Conor COADY. So he brings a lot of intangibles. I like him. I really hope he does well. It looks like he'll probably go to like Sheffield United or someone if Wolves don't end up keeping him, which I think could be possible. I'm not sure, but yeah, sad really, because I think I'd love Everton to have signed him, but he's just not quite the kind of player Everton need right now. For my money, and $4.5 million for somebody who's 30 going on 31, that's not cheap. I know obviously it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but I think for Everton it is for one, and also secondly, no sell-on value. The kind of moves Everton just, it's not quite Ashley Williams, 12 million, I think it was 32 when we got him, which is just insane, but it's not someone I'm going to lose sleep over, and I put it that way. Next up then, Emiliano Martinez, not the goalie from Villa, which is, again, I couldn't find anything on him in terms of FBref or anything like that. It was all about the goalie, but midfielder from Midtjylland, which is an interesting league to shop in, obviously, over in Denmark. I've never heard of him, being totally transparent. Looked at some stuff on Twitter, seems just be a good ball whenever he's 23, coming out of a very poor league in terms of quality coefficient, all that sort of stuff. So be interesting to see if that develops. I like Everton going on trying to get hidden gems, but nobody I could read on him thought he was particularly outstanding in that division, and obviously if he's not doing it over there, then I'm not sure how it will translate. But I'd say ball winning profile, which is interesting, someone that we're going to be looking at over the course of the summer. On that note, Tom Kraus, I think is how you pronounce his name, from RB Leipzig, just been on loan at Schalke this season. Obviously Schalke have been relegated down back to the Zweite Bundesliga. He's played there before with Nuremberg, so again, proper ball winner in centre mid. I've got his FBref up here. Not a technically gifted player whatsoever. I think in terms of his attempted passes in the 2nd percentile, pass completion 7th percentile, progressive passes 11th, so it's not someone that he does a lot of. Obviously, if you're not familiar, the higher they are up in these stats, the better. He's in the 99th percentile for tackles, essentially, 69 for interceptions, 71 for blocks. So making 4 tackles per 90 in the Bundesliga, which is really good in terms of numbers. That they are kind of Idrissa Gueye level numbers when he first came to Everton, sort of looking at that 4 or 5 tackles a game mark. I discussed it with therefore Idrissa Gueye's had a really up and down season. Some games he looks like the kind of player who could play in a Champions League final only 2 or 3 years ago. In other games he's looked like the kind of player who wouldn't have looked out of place in that Villa team that we actually signed him from to begin with. So I think Tom Kraus, 21 years old, again not someone I've ever heard of before this, but reading up on Twitter, there's a lot more information on him and a lot more people saying that he's a bit of a diamond in the rough. What's he saying? 21 years old, so high ceiling. FBref actually do compare him to Idrissa Gueye, which is really interesting. Angel Palinha, who was obviously fantastic in the Premier League this season in terms of defensive midfield players. So this looks really exciting. 5 to 7 million euros. Apparently you'd be able to get a hold of him for. Obviously he went out on loan when Leipzig were under was Tedesco, and then obviously Marco Rose has come in. So whether he plays him or not, I'm unsure. But obviously Leipzig are always willing to sell for a decent price. Obviously Tyler Adams moved on in the summer, for example, to Leeds, did really well. So it's a decent hunting ground for buying teams, should I say, sorry. And it's something that I think we should look into for sure. And again, obviously if that gets closer, we can all take a bit more of a look at him. But moving on, similarly to Mateta, someone we were linked to in January is the Udinese striker Beto, or that's probably Beto, I'm not quite sure, but we were linked with him in January. Udinese actually had a decent season, to be fair. They started off quite well. They were in that sort of, not title race, but they were up there with your Atalantas and your Napolis and your Inters at the start of the season. So they fell away a little bit towards the end, but Beto looked decent whenever I watched him, to be fair, in terms of when we were linked to him. I'd tune into Udinese if they were on the telly or whatever. And in terms of kind of striker we're looking at, he's actually profiled similarly to Victor Osimhen in terms of what I've read, in terms of Udinese looking at Napoli looking to actually sign him to replace Osimhen if he does leave. 10 league goals last season, quite impressive. I think got 11 the season before that. So his numbers over there in Italy are quite good, but 30 million euros is a lot of money. And again, I think if Napoli were to lose Osimhen for they're going to want sort of upwards of 100 million for him, aren't they? It looks like the kind of player they go straight back in and sign. So again, we'll see how that one develops. We linked in January, which is interesting as to whether someone fell well and maybe Deitch is into. But this one I just keep an eye on, because I think when I see a link to either player more than once, you think, right, is this real, or is this just someone trying to rekindle an old rumour? You never quite know, do you? So we'll move on. Obviously we had the news of Fard Mishiri, obviously the Treasury sanctions that are going on with him at the minute, about how his account's closed and stuff. We've got a video coming out next couple of days with the Esk, who obviously discusses this. I'd give that a read. I had no idea what any of it meant, to be honest with you. So I'm sure that'll be a good watch, should I say. Next up then, Jordan Pickford apparently wants to stay at Everton. I mean, we know he is crazy and he's a proper round the bend fella, but I think this just kind of confirms it in terms of we have been so poor the last couple of seasons, but he still wants to stay, supposedly anyway. I mean, it was Paul Joyce, to be fair, which is, I think, obviously other than Fabrizio Romano, is kind of, and the Bobble, of course, they're the kind of main sources for Everton news. So yeah, really good news for us. I think we'd really struggle to replace him. I still think he's one of the best goalkeepers in England right now. And it's interesting because people have said for years, like I always say, oh, it's great when our players get in the England squad, and people say to me, well, no, I'd rather them not be, they're not going to get injured, they're going to be less tired, all these things. But I think it's a perfect example of why I quite like it, because the player thinking, right, I can play for Everton and get in the England squad. I don't need to move on to get into the squad. I don't need to move to a different team to play the same amount of games, play as well as I am at Everton, but do that to be recognised like maybe you might have done 10 years ago, 5-10 years ago, when different managers were in charge, different politics were involved, all that. But it's very clear he is Gareth Southgate's man. He is England's number one for a reason. You say not without justification. He was excellent this season, just got our Player of the Season award today. I think that's his third one since he's been at Everton, which just sums him up really. He's been fantastic. And yeah, I think if he stays at Everton, that is really brilliant news for us. So good stuff. Next up, Fabrizio Romano, as we discussed earlier, talking about Amadou Onana, saying that he thinks that Everton have got a chance of keeping hold of him, which is, I always find it funny when a player who, obviously, yeah, super talented, but I always find it funny when a player who maybe hasn't set the world alight is getting linked to moves away, and it's like, oh yeah, I might still be there, and it's just like, I don't think any Evertonian would be properly heartbroken if we lost Onana. Super talented, yes. I think will be a good player for Everton if he were to stay. I don't think he's ready to step up yet, though. I think for most of the back half of last season, I thought he was relatively poor. So we'll see how that one develops. But interesting if it looks like it's possible he could stay at Everton. So we'll see there. Next up then, penultimately, we've got Niels Nkunku. Has moved on. He's gone to Saint Etienne. That's where he was second half of last season. He was at Cardiff City the first half of last season, which is interesting because obviously the Championship and the Premier League, that gap is, you know, it's relatively low, or relatively small, should I say, whereas Championship to League there, maybe it's a bit higher, because he was much better over in France than he was at Cardiff for sure. I think €2 million he's gone for. Apparently they're going to flip him for €4 million, sell him straight away. Maybe it's a bottom end Ligue 1 club, I'm not quite sure, but yeah, we signed him for free. He came in, he looked the business in cup games against lesser sides, but we didn't really see much of him after that, to be fair, did we, Sam? €2 million earned, really, I think is all you can say for Everton. Maybe got a little bit of loan fees as well when he went out to, I'd say, to Cardiff and onto Saint Etienne, etc. But yeah, moving on then, another Everton loanee who may or may not be leaving the club fully this summer is Jared Branthwaite. Supposedly Everton won €13.5 million, which feels quite low to me, and I think to other Evertonians. Apparently they're only willing to pay 6 or 7 million, which is interesting. Obviously Dutch clubs make a lot of money off selling players, and maybe don't spend a hell of a lot on signing them. But yeah, I mean, for me, Jared Branthwaite was discussed last week that he might actually sign a new contract at Everton, which I'm not sure that's exactly 100% the answer. You don't want to price him out of a move and then actually comes into the team and, oh wow, yeah, he's actually a way off, and then we're back where we started. So if I'm Everton, I just play the smart, see where his head's at in the summer. He discussed obviously wanting to stay at PSV Eindhoven, which I'm not sure. I mean, it's interesting because obviously Ruud this story's just left. They didn't win the league last season. They were out of the title race with a little bit of the season to go. They won the cup, of course, which is obviously good for him. But yeah, I think see where he's at. If Sean Dyche and Everton think he's ready this season to go and play 25-30 games, a bit like William Saliba was in terms of went out on loan, and people are thinking, right, is he now ready? Yeah, throw him straight in there. That's where he's got to be for me. If he comes back and it's like, yeah, we can work on him this season, maybe next season he'll be there, I don't think Everton can risk that. So I think if if he's ready this year, get him in. If he's not, then probably cut our losses, which is unfortunate, but just where we are at the minute as a club. I think if Branthwaite's not quite there, then we should probably look to move him on, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, there is your Everton news report for the week. I'll say obviously these become a bit more regular now that the season has ended and silly season has begun, as I say. So let us know what your thoughts on the latest news and rumours down below, and obviously like and subscribe if you haven't done already. And yeah, thank you very much.